Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Horns Report here on KXAN Plus. I'm your host, Billy Gates, and of course, we're talking about UT football at Burnt Orange, and they've got a huge game coming up Saturday. They take on the fifth-ranked Georgia Bulldogs in Athens, Sanford Stadium, between the hedges, 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC Saturday. Here to talk about it is KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace. And Roger, to say this is a big game for the Longhorns might be an understatement.
Yeah, but, where they were with Florida, if you said, okay, you're going to go to Georgia and it's a top 10 matchup, man, you sign up for that. It's been quite the turn of events since everyone kind of lost hope and interest in this Texas team. They won 4 in a row, 2 top 10 wins. I realize neither of those teams are in the top 10 now, Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, but obviously the margin for error is slim. I'm not giving up on the fact that a 3-loss team can get into the college football playoff, and if Texas is 9-3, it means they either beat number 5 Georgia on the road or possibly number 2 Texas A&M to close the season. But yeah, to stay in the race to get to the SEC title game, which I think is a automatic path into the playoff, they've got to pull off a pretty sizable upset. The number is 5.5, Billy, but it kind of feels like this is a monumental task for this Texas team.
It really does, especially when you consider the Bulldogs are 51-2 in their past 53 games or so at Sanford Stadium. And, I've been telling people this all week, Roger, when people ask me about the matchup and stuff. Like, they've, to as much respect to Steve Sarkisian as humanly possible, Kirby Smart's never been out-coached in his life, I don't think. So they've always have that kind of advantage. I mean, when you look at this Georgia team, Steve Sarkisian was talking about it in the press conference today. There's different faces, there's different names, but every single year it's just about the same type of players.
Yeah, I asked him if that's kind of the ultimate compliment. I suppose if you're a bad program and you say that, then that's the ultimate insult.
Might be different, right?
But here, yeah, it's just, it's about kind of the uniform, right? You kind of just expect if they're wearing that Georgia uniform, they're going to look at a certain way and they're going to play a certain way. Lost to Alabama since then. I mean, we saw what they did Saturday. They gave up an opening drive to Mississippi State, and Mississippi State just kind of went right down the field on them. And you look up and they've scored 38 unanswered points on the road against a team with a little confidence. Remember, they won their first SEC game in a couple of years and score on the opening drive. And then it was a mismatch. So certainly, not only that, Texas has some bad thoughts in their head about Georgia losing twice last year. I went back, Billy, thinking about 1903. I think Texas lost to A&M twice. I don't know anybody that can confirm that in person.
1903, I was going to say who was
but
there.
I think that's the
one.
only time they've lost to the same program twice in the season.
We all remember those 2 games from 1903.
And obviously, if they pull off the win, that would be monumental, and they're going to zoom right into the top 6 or 7. If they lose and play well and it's a 1-score game, I still think there's a path to the playoff with this team. Obviously, then there's no margin for error. They got to beat Arkansas. And
Yep. Then they got to be perfect if they drop this one in Athens. Texas, luckily for them, they are coming off of a bye. So they were able to get a little healthier. We'll get to that in a second. Georgia, as you mentioned, Roger, they beat Mississippi State 41-21 after falling behind a little early there, but then Georgia became Georgia again, and that was pretty much all it was said and done. So for Texas coming off the bye, Sarkisian at his press conference earlier Monday, which is when we taped this, he couldn't express more faith in his secondary now that everybody's going to be good to go. They should be full strength. Michael Taft should be coming back off that thumb injury and subsequent surgery after the Kentucky game. Jelani McDonald is clear concussion protocol. He should be good to go. And then Xavier Fields-Smith, who kind of seems to be just perpetually banged up, he should be coming back and ready to go. Roger, how important is having this secondary at full strength to the Longhorns?
It's monumental. First of all, especially Taft and McDonald, 2 big-time playmakers. Then you throw in the Taft factor of a fifth-year guy out there. He's the guy that gets everybody lined up on the back end. He's been there, done that, seen it all. So that's important. Jelani McDonald is just an outstanding athlete and a playmaker. And it's early in the season, I think you and I agreed he might have been their Defensive Player of the Year through the first month or so. Since then, Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill doing their thing. But it's huge just because you better have your best player at every position ready to go against this Georgia team. They line up, they'll run it down your throat.
Mhm.
They use the tight end. I mean, you think of Brock Bowers and what he did at Georgia, and now they just got so many different weapons. But Gunnar Stockton
Yeah.
will run, unlike Carson Beck, the quarterback. In fact, Texas knocked him out of the SEC title game when they got to him. But there's a lot of different ways this Georgia team's going to stress this Texas defense.
Yeah, so let's hear from Steve about his secondary, about them, essentially becoming a whole again at just the right time for this matchup against Georgia. So here's Steve.
Well, let's start with getting 16 back, getting 4 back, okay, getting 17 back healthy. I mean, those 3 guys are factors for us. And Grayson Littleton, having, that as a true freshman playing the amount of snaps he's playing, I think him having a bye week to kind of get his body refreshed is big for him. But all those guys that I touch on affect what we do on the perimeter, because that's everybody playing on the same accord. That's everybody working together. That's the communication and the communicating with confidence. And so I do think Manny, Jalen, and Cade Phillips growing up, I do think their play is affected by what we do inside. When you have to try to protect things inside, that puts guys a little bit more on islands on the perimeter. But I think if we can play as one as a unit, we're pretty good back there. And so getting 16 and 4 and 17, healthy, the emergence of Jonah, I think, has been helpful for us as well. So very confident in that unit and looking forward to them play Saturday night.
So yeah, you heard it from him. I mean, just having having a leader like Taft back is just, it's like you were saying, it's monumental in their sort of kind of get back to where they feel like they belong. Because, man, without Taft and without McDonald for that last half of the Vanderbilt game, that secondary looked pretty suspect.
Defense has been an issue the last 2 ball games, in the wins at Mississippi State and then Vanderbilt. Both scored over 30. And, yeah, you had the X factor of Diego Pavia, but Mississippi State, not an offense that you would think really scares you that much. And they did their thing as well. So you want all your playmakers. And I think this defense is going to have to not only make some plays, but, turn them over, give the offense a short field, score on defense, something to disrupt a game. You always talk about that on the road and in big ball games, is the ball, and can you take care of it and can you take it away? And I think the defense has to do that for Texas to have a chance to win on Saturday.
Yep, if you defend and run the ball well on the road, like that's the old football cliche, right? If you're able to pack your defense, pack your run game with you, you're always going to have a chance. And the Texas run game is emerging. It's weird to say that this far in the season, but with some changes on the offensive line last game, so 2 weeks ago when they played Vanderbilt, it seemed like Sarkisian and his staff were able to unlock some of the issues on the offensive line, moving Cole Hudson from center to guard and then moving Connor Robertson to center, kind of more of a natural fit. Roger, like how do you see that sort of fitting into this matchup?
Essential that they do something on the ground, and maybe it's not a big number, but maybe it's, a certain spot in the game where they need to run the ball. Trey Wisner's been up and down. C.J. Baxter really just hasn't been healthy since the Ohio State game. So he's had 2 games under his belt, a week off. So you figure you're going to get the best version of C.J. Baxter in a long time. They got to find a way to make something happen, take some pressure off of Arch and help out that passing game. Play action is so much more dangerous, obviously, when you can run the football. And Georgia's so aggressive defensively. I think they're just going to try to light Arch up if they become one-dimensional. So, yeah, to your point, got to be able to find ways to run. I think Sark, he's had 2 weeks. I think he'll have some stuff. Not really up his sleeve as far as trick plays, but I think there'll be some things that he's had a couple of weeks to be in the lab to think about. All right, what do they do well? How can we maybe take advantage of their speed, for instance, on defense, some misdirection, some things like that, to try to combat that, because this offense really in the run game hasn't been explosive enough where you're just going to line up and think you can run it down their throat. Right,
yeah, it's not going to be the old I formation, just cram it between the tackles and try to get, 3-4 yards at a chunk. It's Ryan Wingo, we've seen him be such a playmaker these past, 2-3 games, and we've always known he's had that game-breaking speed. It's just been a matter of maybe not so much his focus, but maybe a mindset issue with him of really trying to haul in some passes and focus on catching the ball, because he's been prone to some drops this season. but he showed us all against Vanderbilt how an explosive athlete can be. He seems like that could be sort of an X factor against a team like Georgia, who's so fast and maybe susceptible to the screen game that Texas has been employing the past couple weeks.
Billy, do you think Sark comes out first play and throws that receiver screen to Ryan Wingo for a third straight week? Hoping if it's not broke, don't fix it. Nearly scored against Mississippi State and then
Right.
scored against Vanderbilt. But yeah. And you said it. He's a home run hitter. He's a big play guy, but he's got to hit the singles too. And that means the 8-yard crossing route for a third down conversion.
Oh, yeah.
A sideline pass. It might be for 6 yards, but move the chains, things like that. Got to be more consistent. So offensive line plays a lot into that. For instance, that's the screen pass, the one to Wingo against Vanderbilt. I'm not talking about the offensive line. I'm talking about Arch now.
Yeah.
He threw it right to him. He didn't have to move one way or the other. He didn't have to go back. He hit him, boom, he can run and things like that. So, there's some choreography to it, and that's where Arch's ascent over the last couple of weeks really helps things out for Texas.
Oh, yeah. And you could tell Arch was just so much more comfortable against Vanderbilt, which, you look at that Commodores defense coming into that game, they were getting after some people, leading up to their number 9 ranking before that game. That was their highest ranking in 88 years or something. Before Texas came out, just really laid it on them for the first 3 quarters, led 34-10, and then things got a little interesting there in the fourth quarter against Vanderbilt. And obviously, that's not something that Steve Sarkisian wants to see, but at the same time, they were able to hold off Vanderbilt. However, Georgia is a completely different animal. It's going to take every second of the 60 minutes for Texas to get out of there with a win, maybe even more.
Sometimes I think we make a lot of starts in a ball game.
Yeah.
For instance, the Oklahoma game. It helps, but there are going to be so many ebbs and flows to that game. But look at Florida. Slow start and never could recover.
Yeah.
Look at Vanderbilt, fast start, and they built themselves enough of a cushion that they were able to withstand it. I think this is important for a couple reasons. First, Georgia's really good. It's on the road. And Texas has – these kids are human. They've got some bad thoughts in their head about Georgia, not so much the SEC title game, but remember what happened here. That game was so big and so much was made of it, and then they go out and Georgia ran roughshod at them right out of the gates, and then they had to struggle to get back in it. They got the 1-point game. You had the issue with the reverse call on the pass interference, Jahdae Barron, and what happened in the north end zone and all that.
But again, water bottle gate.
I think a fast start, or at least hanging in there at the start, is more important in this kind of game than some other games.
I know one of our interns, we were talking about this earlier, she was at the game, and she said she sounded pretty guilty when she said that she didn't throw any bottles. But anyway, I'm not going to name names, Grace. Sorry. But anyway, but yeah, huge game coming up. There's no other way to describe it. This feels like, as far as SEC title hopes go, this is a must win for Texas, and I kind of got to feel like what you've been saying. These kids are human. They're gonna feel that. And Texas has been pretty good on the road recently, the past few years. They drop a game at Ohio State, drop that game at Florida. And they've been playing on the road for a month up until the Vanderbilt game. But seems like playing on the road is more of a mindset than anything, Roger. What kind of read do you get from this club about them playing on the road?
Yeah, I think it was a good example last year of, you got Georgia at home. You're as good as you are. You're undefeated. And it didn't matter. Georgia came in here and didn't blink. So I think Texas, that's where I go back to the start. I think it can snowball on the road more so than at home. And I think Florida was a good example of that. A couple of bad plays and dropped interception or fumble recovery, and all of a sudden. But yeah, I think they have enough experience of winning on the road, and I don't know if Georgia's going to be harder than Mississippi State or harder than Kentucky. It's on the road. It's going to be 100,000. They're going to be really loud. Mississippi State was 60,000. It was really, really loud. Kentucky, they were more of a wait and see. And then all of a sudden they go, wait, we're in it? Okay. It got pretty loud. Now, Georgia's got the history between the hedges, all that goes with that. The G on the helmet means something. I'm sure they win a lot of games when the opponent sees the G.
Yeah.
I don't think Texas will be that way.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think there's a mindset, and I think it starts with the trigger guy. I think if Arch comes out, plays well early on, then they're going to gain some confidence. I hate putting so much pressure on the quarterback, but they talk about it's the hardest position in sports. So I guess it stands to reason you're going to use that as kind of the starting point for everything.
Yeah, makes sense to me. So 6:30 p.m. Central, 7:30 local time there in Athens, Georgia. Texas and Georgia face off ABC on Saturday. Going to be a really good game, Roger, like pretty much every SEC game is these days. So let's shift our kind of focus to the coaches of each team. I mean, obviously Texas, Steve Sarkisian, Georgia's Kirby Smart. They're pals. Like they're buddies. Like they text each other on their game days. Apparently, we learned today at the press conference. Bob Blue from CBS Austin asked Steve about kind of his texting habits with Kirby, and I'll play the sound for you right here. But it's just an interesting look into the coaching brethren and how much of a small world it is, and kind of folks with similar interests tend to flock to each other. So here's Steve talking about how him and Kirby are buddies.
Kirby said he texted you on the way to the game on Saturday morning. Is that normal, number one? But number two, how has your relationship with him maybe changed in the last year and a half because you're in the same conference now, or how has it grown?
Yeah, he did text me Saturday morning. We're in a couple different group chats together, and Kirby and I do text periodically. But he was on that ride from Tupelo down to Starkville, which I had just done, obviously, a couple years ago. And that's one unique thing about the SEC. It's like, man, you always want to try to stay close to stadiums, but it's hard to do that in our conference, the way some of these towns are set up. And so he checked in with what I was doing. I said, well, I just got to work out, I'm about to have breakfast and watch you play, bud. So good luck, see how it goes. But, again, I think, honestly, our relationship's probably gotten closer since we've been in the league. We have more things to talk about. I think one thing about him being the head coach at Georgia and myself being the head coach at Texas, I think that we have an opportunity to be influential on trying to do what's best for our game, not only in our conference, but in the state of college football. And I think us being aligned on as many issues as we can be aligned on, I think is good for the sport. And so we try to do that. And we're not going to agree on everything. Obviously, he's a defensive head coach, so he's trying to get all the rules in favor of the defense. I'm trying to get him in favor of the offense. But in the end, I have a ton of respect for Kirby and the job that he does, and the way that his teams play the game. And so a ton of respect for him. I always love competing against him. It's a great challenge, and this week's no different.
So, yeah, it's one of those things where, kind of people from the outside who maybe they're casual fans of sports or whatever, like opposing coaches, like they just got to hate each other, right? Like you have to have all this anger built up against your opponent, when in reality, coaches talk to other coaches all the time. They hang out over the summer and the off season. Like they are friends, and Steve and Kirby, are no exception to that.
Yeah, and their coaching paths, either they coach with somebody that coach with the other guy, or there are connections, or you coach with him as an assistant coach. He and Lane Kiffin go back to the USC days, so they're old buddies there. And Sark kind of took a shot at Lane Kiffin today.
That's funny.
As well as something he said. So yeah, and also they're both with Nike school, so that means they might do some events in the off season together, travel together as well. But certainly it's a fraternity. How many guys can relate to what they go through with the pressure they're under, the expectations? Yes, they get paid a lot of money, but it is a unusual lifestyle and unusual existence. So you probably tend to gravitate to those that can kind of relate to you. They both have the Nick Saban tie, Kirby earlier than Sark. So sure. Now, I'm sure Sark would like to be on the other side of this rivalry a couple of times, or it's real easy for Kirby Smart to be pals with a guy that he beat. So you always wonder, okay, if it flips a little bit, how does Kirby react to Sark? Same way?
I think so. But yeah, no, I think it's interesting for people to hear that sort of side, that sort of human side of big time college football coaches, because you don't get it very often from folks. We're so. Folks in the media are so focused on trying to create drama and create all these sort of like narratives and storylines, when I mean, I think it's a bit refreshing for coaches to talk nice about other coaches. But hey, that's just me.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's so clear on the coaches that have influenced him.
Yeah.
Primarily Nick Saban and Pete Carroll, but
Yeah.
you go down the list, and Kirby Smart's one of those guys. But I mean, any coach he goes against, it seems like he has a connection when you've been around as long, and these guys move around so much that they usually have either a common coach who's worked with both of those guys, or they've worked, like I said, together. So it's a fraternity that it was like when he defended the buyouts. A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He goes, hey, with the pressure we've got, we got paid, but we got to have some assurances here. And, that's a topic that coaches are always going to come to their brethren's aid to on something like that.
Yeah. All righty. Well, we have Texas Game Day on KBVO at 5:30 on Saturday, hour before the game there. We'll do it from here, obviously, since it's an away game. But Roger, before we end this, I just want to say, if there's one thing Texas has to do to beat Georgia, other than score more points, what do the Longhorns have to do in order to get past the Bulldogs there on their home field and give them that third loss in 54 tries?
Well, I could say turnovers, but
sure.
I mean that's kind of a given. If you win the turnover battle, you'll probably have a much better chance of winning the game. I'm going to say they need to score. I think they're going to give up some points, but if they can score, if they can move the ball, if the offense doesn't get stagnant, if it's the offense we've seen when they're really good and they're not going 3 and out and having to put their defense right back on the field, I think they've got a shot. If they're struggling to move the ball like we've seen at times this year, obviously it's going to be tough. I think offense is going to be the key to this game for Texas.
All righty, well, we'll end it right there. Thank you so much for watching the Horns Report here on KXAN Plus. For Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again very soon.